Hey there. So I'm just going to try and go over those 4 points for you that you had in your most recent message. So firstly, I think you mentioned something about the total approved stock quantity not showing up correctly. So essentially, the way this works is this value that shows up when you enter, like in this case, when you select an ITR and this value pops up, the initial value that pops up is going to be whatever the initial value is in the balance stock. So if your total approved stock quantity is 57,070, but for some reason this value starts off at, let's just say 40,000, when you select this value, so ITR 1002 for the first time, you're not going to see 57,070. You're going to see whatever value this is. So that's why I was saying every time you go to have a new loading summary, so a new sheet that you put together for the day of, you want to make sure that these values are equal to these values, or they're equal to whatever approved stock quantity you have. I don't know if I don't understand what the business is, but this is the value that gets pulled both into here and to here, because this is the value that's the running update. So this value constantly gets updated. This is just like a baseline. So this is what you would use to understand what your initial amounts were. This is the number, and this is the column that constantly gets updated and populated into this spreadsheet. These numbers never get populated into this spreadsheet. It's only these numbers that get populated into the spreadsheet. So if there's an issue with this number showing up wrong the first time, it's because this value is incorrect. So you need to make sure that this value, this column, is correct, because these are the numbers that get pulled into this spreadsheet. And that's the only way we can do it if you want to have a running total. So every time you enter new values for ITR 1002, like in this case, it was whatever that is, 15,970, which gives us that. But if you were to do ITR 1002 again, if I were to do, so right now it's at 41,100. If I were to do another loading for this with 1,000, you'll see now this shows up as 41,100, 39,100. So now when I go to the list, you'll see that this has been updated. This number doesn't change. This number will never change unless you change it. Again, this is a baseline to understand what your initial approved stock quantity was. This is the value that will always change, and this is the value you need to make sure is updated correctly the first time. So if I were to do another record of ITR 1002, this value, 39,100, will show up as my approved stock quantity. And then when you load it and you include the spillage, that number is going to get subtracted, but it's only this value that's being adjusted. This value will not change. So if there's an issue with the initial amount, again, you need to make sure that this column is correct. This is to help you understand what your initial amounts were for purposes of if you need to backtrack in any case. This column will never get updated automatically. This column always gets updated automatically. So hopefully that takes care of your first point. The second point, I'd really like to help you with this. I just don't see what issue is coming up. Every time I try and, like you said, this is the sheet where you get an error. When I go to run update summary, I have no issues. It doesn't give me an error, as you see. And I don't get a debug error. I don't know what error you're getting. Maybe if you could take a print screen and I can walk you through how to debug an error properly. Typically, you'll see a thing come up like you saw, like a notice, and then you can hit the debug button. And it should bring up the Visual Basic, and it should highlight a specific row in yellow. So if you get that error again, if you can maybe hit the debug button, and then when you see it brings up the code and it has a line highlighted in yellow, if you could take a print screen of that for me, that would be great, because that's the only way I can understand what the error is. Again, right now, if I were to clear everything and just update it again, I get no errors. So I'm not sure what error you're seeing, but I'd still like to help. I just don't know what error you're seeing. I know you had another point about arranging these in cascading order. They do. So you'll see these are not in order at all. 1, 0, 1s, and then you have 1s down here. You have a 2 down here, a 0, 4 down here, 0, 5 down here. These all automatically cascade down. So you'll see all your 1s are at the top, and then all your 2s, all your 3s, all your 4, 5, 6, all the way down. So this is cascading all the way down. So that is working properly. And the last thing I think you mentioned was the formulas are not updating. So there's no formulas here. These formulas are all the way down. These formulas only work properly to pull this data because there's no formula here. This is all based on VBA code. So this is only going to work if there's a date in this cell. So if I put in a date, 2019-08-15, that's when we see it update. So you need to have a date in this column. If there's no date in this column, this is not going to pull automatically. So you need to make sure there's a date corresponding to this entry. If there's no date, then this is not going to automatically pull values in this column. So just always make sure there's a date and everything will work just fine. So again, there's no formula. It's all based on VBA code. And that's why you can see there's no formulas in these cells. But if I were to put in another ITR number here, let's just do 04, nothing shows up. Yeah, nothing shows up, but you need to make sure that there is a formula, a date in this cell for this to work. So that's the problem. As far as I can tell, just make sure there's a date, and as soon as I enter that date, that's when we see that that show up properly. So yeah, give that a shot, and if you have any other questions, just let me know. Okay, thanks a lot.